Magical, incredible grinder. Love this grinder. Just a few recent comments from user reviews on what we consider to be the king of prosumer level espresso grinders. But there are other options. So in this video, we get out the test gear and get into the science across a range of 6 grinders from Ceado, Eureka, and Baratza. We'll deep test them all and have results of grind particle analysis, grinding speed, dosing accuracy, and sound levels. You'll get an inside look at build materials, appraise how the grinders operate, and see how each distributes coffee into a portafilter. It's everything you need to help choose the right espresso grinder to fit your needs and budget. Hey espresso lovers, Mark here from Whole Latte Love. Today a look at the grinder getting all that love and a deep technical comparison to a range of other espresso grinding options. So the king here, the Ceado E37S, it's solid and powerful. Has massive 83mm burrs. It pours ground coffee beautifully into a portafilter, you know, with its reassuring sound and super fluffy grind. Maybe purrs is a better way to describe what the E37S does. It's truly exceptional, high-end commercial level grinding. So good the E37S and Ceado are a brand coffee shops rely on, and it's long been our reference grinder when testing top-level machines. So I'll take you inside the E37S and show you what sets it apart. You'll learn how it makes dialing in and portafilter prep simpler for more consistent results. Plus, I'll have a look at specialty burr upgrade options like Opal Glide and SSP Red Speed burrs. Now, if you're not quite ready to go all in on the king, I'll cover Ceado's prosumer grade options with smaller yet substantial 64mm burr sets, including the E37J, E5P, and E6P. Even if you're not ready to upgrade or purchase a grinder right now, you're going to get a good education on how grinders differ by price level and what to consider when choosing a grinder for your home espresso setup. Over the last decade, I've done more than 1,000 videos on espresso, coffee techniques, and equipment. To classify products, I often use categories including appliance grade, machine grade, and prosumer level. Now, some prosumer level products cross over into full commercial grade, and that's the case with the E37S. First, it's NSF and ETL certified. So open up the E37S and other Ceado grinders and you'll see that higher build quality. Now, I'm not gonna pick on anyone here, but I do want you to understand the difference in components between the grades. For example, I class the popular Eureka Mignon line of grinders as machine grade. Now, keep in mind the top of the line Mignon is less expensive than an E37S, but pricing is much closer to the 64mm EP series Ceados we'll look at. Internally, you can see the differences from the fasteners and screws that hold things together to the materials used like forged aluminum components versus machined steel. Some plastic parts versus next to no plastic. Then there's the motors. 500 watts of power in the E37S, 300 in the E37J, E5P and E6P, and 260 in the Eureka. The extra power with larger burrs means higher duty cycles and less risk when grinding harder and denser, light roasted specialty beans. Dropping down to appliance grade grinders with lower prices like the Baratza Sette 270 and Encore ESP, there's a lot of plastic. The external housings, yeah, they're all plastic, and there's a lot of plastic under the hood as well. With all that, you've got wear parts like friction rings and the need to shim burrs in the Sette after break-in. Frankly, you want to be gentle when you use these. Plastic brakes, metal components, you know, not so much. Appliance grade products usually don't hold up well under heavy use or abuse. The ability to very precisely adjust grind size is critical when making espresso. Slight changes make a really big difference. There are 2 basic types of adjustments: stepped and stepless. On grinders with stepped adjustment, there are definite stops or clicks at each grind size setting. On grinders with stepless adjustment, grind size is continuously variable. No stops, so they are more precise. All the grinders we're looking at in this video, with the exception of the Encore ESP, have stepless adjustment. The Encore ESP is intended as an entry-level multi-purpose grinder. To make it more useful, stepped adjustments in the Espresso range produce a much smaller change in grind size than those outside of that range. While that works to some extent, it still does not have the precision of stepless adjustment in the other grinders. The Ceado E37S kind of mixes types. It has a stepped macro adjustment ring, and then you fine-tune using a stepless micro adjustment ring, which is more precise, allowing you to fine-tune in between the stepped macro settings. The rest of the grinders all have stepless adjustment, but they differ a bit in how they work. The E37S uses Ceado's Quick Set gear tech, a worm gear setup that's the best of the bunch. Super small changes are really easy to make. The E37J has quick set adjustment driven by a lever. Now, that looks like it has limited range, but you've got precision and can adjust the lever's range as needed. The E5 and 6Ps have a fully rotating collar adjustment. Those have high precision and can quickly make large grind size adjustments. Eureka Mignon grinders like the Magnifico have a smaller adjustment knob. It has the precision of the other stepless grinders, but you're making a much smaller physical turn when adjusting, so overshooting a target, it's going to be a little easier to do. Whatever grinder you get, you're likely to use it a lot. For espresso, it's probably multiple times daily for many years. So how fast it grinds and how noisy it is can make a difference. To test grinding speed, all the grinders were dialed in to produce a standard espresso. All the parameters I use for that will be coming up when we look at results of the grind particle analysis test. For noise tests, our reference decibel meter was placed at ear level, and I noted estimated average and peak sound levels. Those decibel measurements, they give us a baseline for comparison, but there is a subjective nature to the tone of the sound a grinder makes. So after test results, you'll get to listen to each on its own. For grinding speed, the bigger burrs and motor in the E37S make a difference, pumping out 4.3 grams per second, and it does it with a smooth sound. The Ceado E37S, it's fast and by far the loudest grinder of the bunch. The Magnifico, it surprised me, delivering 2.2 grams per second. The 64 millimeter Ceados range from about 1.4 to 1.6 grams, and the Encore ESP came in at about 1.2 grams. For a reference on sound levels, 70 decibels is about the noise level inside a car, while 80 decibels is the equivalent of a vacuum cleaner. On our reference meter, aside from the Sette, all the grinders were very close, but subjectively, there's a different quality to their sounds. So here's that listen to each. To me, the tone of the E37S is powerfully pleasant. It's similar for the other Ceados with a little less girth to the tone, if that makes sense. Here's the Eureka. Relatively quiet, but not as smooth as the Ceados. The Encore isn't loud, but more grindy, if that makes sense. The Ceado E37S is a whole other animal. It's the loudest by meter, and subjectively, it's, well, kind of screams. You can hear the Sette a room or two away. As these are all hopper-fed grinders, I'm not going to go deep on retention, which is the amount of ground coffee left after you grind a dose. If you've got beans left in a hopper-fed grinder after a grind cycle, there'll be retention of a few grams of fully and partially ground beans. Grinding another dose soon, no big deal. If it's going to be a while, then you'll have to purge and discard a few grams for a totally pure dose. That said, a couple of these grinders can sort of single dose. Now, honestly, if you want a single dose, you should probably get a grinder built for that purpose. And there are single dosing versions of the Ceado and Eureka grinders we're looking at. When evaluating a grinder, I check how the coffee distributes into a portafilter and if there are clumps. Why? Well, good distribution and a clump-free grind reduce prep time. Proper portafilter prep, I'm going to call that PPP, reduces chances of brew water channeling through the coffee and ups consistency in extractions. If the coffee falls evenly into the portafilter and there are no clumps, then you don't have to fix it. Just go ahead and tamp and pull your shot. If distribution is off or the grind is clumpy, you might be shaking or stirring your grind to break up clumps or using extra tools and techniques to fix deficiencies, adding to your prep time. There's also how the grinder is used. Can I put my portafilter in place and let go, or do I have to hold it in place while grinding, or can I even grind directly into a portafilter? So let's take a look at that for each of the grinders. With the E37S, you can hang the portafilter and knock the start button to start a timed grind cycle. Grinds flow well distributed into the portafilter and are essentially clump-free. The E37J operates the same way. Once again, grind distributes well and relatively clump-free with no additional prep needed. On the E6P, you can hang the portafilter hands-free. Instead of a button start grinding, you start the dose on a touch panel up above. Once again, distribution and clumping characteristics are very good. The E5P is the same grinder internally as the E6P. The difference is it's a manual on demand with no timing functions and a button on the side to start and stop. Distribution and grind quality are the same as the E6P. It just comes at a lower price without the timing functions. The Mignon Magnifico can grind hands-free. It's similar to the E6P with 2 timed presets and manual grinding. I'll let you judge the distribution quality, but to me, centering in the portafilter doesn't quite match the Ceado's, and there is some minor clumping. The Baratza Sette 270 has a swing-out adjustable hook to hold the portafilter in place for hands-free grinding. There are 3 timed presets plus manual grinding. Grinds mount up very nicely in a portafilter, are very fluffy and clump-free. I've used Sette grinders quite a bit, and from time to time I have had some static and overspray. That's mostly been an issue when the grinder is new out of the box and the burrs have yet to season with a coat of oil or when using the grinder in low humidity environments. The Encore ESP is a fully manual grinder with a simple on-off switch on the side and a press and hold switch on the front for bumping a dose. For espresso, it's set up to grind into a dosing cup. Now, technically, it could probably hold a portafilter in place to catch the coffee, but with its clumpier grind, you're probably better off using the dosing cup. That way, you could try and shake and break the clumps before transferring to your portafilter. For the grinders with timed grinding, I checked how consistent they were delivering the same weight of coffee from a timed cycle. For that, I used the results of the grams per second grinding speed from the earlier test to calculate a time to deliver an 18-gram dose. I then ran that time cycle 5 times on each grinder, calculated the average weight delivered over the 5 cycles, and also the average deviation and the maximum deviation from the average weight delivered. Here are those results. Now, many of the grinders did quite well. The E37S's average deviation from the average dose weight was excellent at about 1/10 of a gram. The other Ceado's and the Eureka were all within 1/10 of a gram of each other. The Sette 270 had the highest maximum deviation at a little over 1/2 gram. Once you've dialed in your grind size, a grinder that gives you as close as possible to the same weight of ground coffee each cycle is going to make your life a whole lot easier. If you can trust your grinder does that, you don't need to pull out a scale to check weight every time you grind. This was my favorite part of making this video. For it, I used the Lightel's CM200 particle analyzer. It's a tool designed specifically for analyzing the distribution of particle sizes in a sample of ground coffee. It also does roast level grading. For my tests, I dialed in all the grinders to produce a 1:2 weighed ratio output from 18 grams of coffee with a shot timing of 25 to 30 seconds on this ECM Synchronica espresso machine. Once dialed in, I took a sample of ground coffee from each grinder, placed it on the analyzer, did 5 tests, and averaged the results. Between each test, the sample is redistributed by snapping the particle plate 5 times. The result of the test is a graph in micron range groups that looks like this. Readings in the pan range represent particle sizes below 200 microns. For reference, the generally accepted median particle size for espresso is 250 microns. That means 50% of the particles measured are smaller and 50% are larger. The analyzer also gives the median particle size. So let's take a look at those results first, along with the extraction timing of each. It's honestly a little surprised that when dialed in, median particle sizes were so close across all the grinders to that 250 microns. Measuring tiny particles is really hard, but these results gave me confidence in that 250 number, and along with the shot timing being a hair slower for smaller median sizes, the analyzer was producing useful and trustworthy information. Here's a graph comparing the particle size distribution for all 6 grinders. Again, this is the average of 5 readings from each grind sample. Now, there's a lot to interpret here, and like everything espresso, there are many variables involved, and different interpretations could draw different conclusions. For me, a few things stick out. First, in the less than 200 micron range, the larger flat burr grinders produce less fines. Now, fines in theory should be first to over-extract and cause bitter flavors. In that respect, the E37S produced the lowest percentage. Looking at the 200 to 300 micron range, the flat burr grinders all had higher percentages than the conical burr Baratza grinders. The continuity between the E37J and E6P, which use the same 64 millimeter burrs at no more than 2% difference in any size range, boosted my confidence in the validity of the results. One last thing I'll note is all the grinders had near identical percentages in the 300 to 425 range, and the conical burr grinders spiked slightly in the 425 to 600 range. So my conclusions, well, do keep in mind it's a small sample size, but I'm comfortable saying that flat burr grinders produce less fines and have higher percentages of particles around espresso's 250 micron median particle size. What does that mean in the cup? Well, as I pulled shots for testing, I tasted them all. It's subjective, of course, but to my palate, the larger flat burr grinders had fewer bitter notes, were more round in flavor with greater clarity. If you want to take your grinding to another level, I'll quickly mention some state-of-the-art Burr upgrades available for the E37S and 64 millimeter Ceado grinders. SSP red speed burrs are built to last a lifetime, made from tool steel and coated with titanium, aluminum, carbon nitride. You'd expect them to be good for over 10,000 pounds of grinding. They grind faster, transfer less heat to beans, and have engineered cutting edges for a grounds distribution that users feel produces more nuances in the cup. Ceado's Opal Glide burrs are engineered with a unique cutting geometry and surface treatment to reduce friction and cut retention in their single dosing grinders, but are likely to improve grind uniformity in their non-single dosing grinders as well. You can really feel the difference in smoothness compared to stock burrs. I'll go deeper into specialty burrs in a future video. For no questions asked, excellent grinding, the Ceado E37S, it's the king. It's easy to use with very precise quick set adjustment, grinds quickly with accurate dose-to-dose weights. It produces a grind quality that requires no extra prep. Those big flat burrs produce fewer fines for improved flavor and will provide reliable daily operation for decades. There are more expensive grinders, but at this level you start hitting major diminishing returns for extra costs. The E37J, E6P, and E5P take you down to 64 millimeters, but are excellent prosumer level grinders. Not quite the fines performance of the king, but darn good prosumer level grinders and less expensive. Eureka Mignon grinders like the Magnifico give up a little build quality, and for me don't quite match the fluffiness or distribution of grinds compared to the Ceados. Looking at the conical burr Baratzas, their particle size distribution doesn't match the performance of flat burrs, and they are appliance grade products. If you can take the noise, the Sette E270 has excellent distribution and precise control with a stepless micro ring. The Encore ESP is a budget option for entry-level espresso, especially if you're using other brew methods. You know, if you're new to espresso, be sure and watch my video on how to dial in grind size. It's perhaps the most important yet misunderstood part of making espresso. Use a link right over there for that. I'm Mark. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here soon for more of the best on everything coffee, brought to you by Whole Latte Love.